Sup guys, and welcome back to Cloud of Imagination. Hope you're all doing well. So for this week's video, it might be a bit of a long one because I want to talk about my feelings on Jessica Jones season 2. I guess technically this is kind of a bit delayed considering it was released like 8th of March and now it's like April. I binged it pretty much as soon as it came out, and today I just wanted to discuss some of my feelings on the season. So if you haven't seen season 2 yet, please don't watch this video until you've seen it because it's going to be chocked full of spoilers. So maybe check out one of my other videos. Maybe if you like Jessica Jones, you could check out my cosplay video or any of my other videos. So here's your chance to click away before I start delving into spoiler territory. So there was your chance. Spoilers from here on out. Right, so with season 2, I had a lot of mixed feelings. There was some stuff that I liked and some stuff that I didn't. So I'm going to try and blend it into two separate categories of maybe stuff that I didn't like and stuff that I did like. There is a lot of mixed feelings here because there was some kind of ways that they took the story that I wasn't completely fully happy with, and I'm not sure about this season because I think I'm still on a slow rewatch with my mom because she's catching up with this season as well, and I think it's one of those ones where I'm probably going to have to watch it again to fully make up my mind. But yeah, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this one because Jessica's one of my favourite Marvel characters, so it's really tricky to sum up my feelings for this season. So I'm just going to delve into what I didn't like, and I have to say the big one for me that I didn't really like was I don't think it's very binge watchable. I watched like a few episodes like one night with my mom. I think we got to like episode 5. I think we watched 4 episodes in a night, and then I watched the other 9 the next day, and I binged it the whole day, and it was really hard to binge, not because I wasn't invested in the story, but because it dealt with a lot of heavy subjects. I think more so than season 1 did. Even though season 1 was very heavy and very dark, this felt heavier, like a lot heavier with some of the stuff that it was doing. I got to the end of the season, and at least with season 1 there was a bit of hope at the end, and even though I guess there was technically some hope at the end of season 2 for Jessica because she went to Oscar and his son, it kind of felt like at the end everything just broke apart and I just cried my eyes out. It made me super depressed. That probably makes it very hard to kind of binge watch it, and I don't know whether it's a thing with season 2 because they had it with Daredevil where they kind of seem to just break down the relationships in season 2 because they kind of broke down Matt's connections with Foggy and Karen. But unlike Daredevil, I can see like Matt and Foggy reconciling and becoming friends again, even though they kind of do in Defenders anyway. Same with Karen, I can see there was hope potentially maybe for some reconciliation at the end. But with this, one thing they really centred on, especially in season 1, was Jessica's connection with Trish, and they completely tore that apart this season, and that was one of the things I really didn't like. I understand what they were trying to do. They were getting into the complexity of characters, and it's true to life in a way. People are complicated, sometimes people are ridiculously selfish. But I saw elements of maybe Trish's drug abuse in season 1. Yeah, she really went off the rails this season. Trish was a big thing this season that I didn't like. I really actually loved her character last season, and I loved the connection that she had with Jessica. That was kind of the forefront of the season, even though Jessica had Luke as well. The forefront of that season was her connection to Trish and how important Trish was to her, and it just made season 2 more heartbreaking to just see that relationship just crumble apart, and it was all really mainly down to Trish. I mean, I know Jessica is probably a very complicated person to be friends with because she likes her space alone, and like Trish said in Defenders, she's not like a traditional friend where you can ask her to help you move or something, but if something happens in your life and you're in a dark place, Jessica will be there for you. The way Trish went this season was really hard to watch, and it got to the point where I was just screaming at my TV and she was pissing me off so much. I understand that they're trying to get into the complexity of human nature and sometimes maybe how horrible we can be, but I didn't like how selfish she was this season. She really descended back into her drug abuse, which to be honest didn't surprise me. We had elements of that in season 1 anyway. but it was the whole her getting powers, and she just took it too far. And it got to the point where Jessica was being nice to her in the last few episodes, where she did something stupid and helped save her. And I was at the point, I was like, honestly, Jess, you should just yell at her. She's not being good to you. It almost turned very toxic for Jess because she was pouring everything out for Trish, and Trish was just focusing on how jealous she was of Jess, and it felt like they tore down that connection and that care that she at least showcased to Jess in season 1, and it just made it really hard and tough to watch. So I think it kind of almost hit a bit close to home in that sense and just made it really tough and hard to watch. I think the final turning point was Trish just doing everything in her power to get powers and then shooting Jessica's mom at the end. That was... unlike Matt and Foggy in season 2 of Daredevil, I don't see how they can really move past that. The only way I could potentially see that is, of course, we know that they had that tease at the end of season 2 of Trish becoming Hellcat, and that was something that I wanted. I wanted her to team up with Jess and them to fight together and be badasses together. Like, we did get a taste of that this season, which I really did like. I relate to a lot of people on Tumblr. It's like, we all wanted Hellcat, but not like this. Not like this. Like, why did you have to go do that, Trish? I understood at the end. I think you could see where it was going. I think the only real way probably to stop Jessica's mom was for her to die. But it's the fact that it had to be Trish. She really jumped the gun. I couldn't understand, I think, to a degree, that maybe she was trying to protect Jess, but why did it have to be her? I don't really see how they're going to move past that. And I'm kind of hoping that Trish tries to be a superhero and she fails. I mean big time fails, because I think then she'll finally understand how hard it is for Jess when she struggles with stuff. That just because you've got superpowers doesn't mean you're suddenly going to be saving everybody. I think the only way for her to get her kind of redemption arc, and I hope she does get her redemption arc, is for her to fail and fail hard and finally kind of see the world from Jessica's perspective and stop looking at her through these jealous eyes. Like I said, I have a very lot of mixed feelings about that, and Trish was the centre of it all because she was a character I really liked, and this season I really started to hate her and she started to piss me off. But at the same time, I still kind of care about her and still care about her connection with Jess, even though she was the one that's torn it apart. Also, something that I didn't like was there was no real connection to Defenders at all. There was stuff that happened at the end of Defenders and it almost kind of just got pushed aside. And I understand they were focusing more on Jessica's story with her mom and with Trish and everything else that was going on. But some mention to it would have been nice. It almost seemed like it didn't happen. Surely, I think you could see in Defenders the natural chemistry between Matt and Jessica. And I think you could see at the end how hard it hit her, what happened to Matt. And there was no mention of that, like, at all. I'm not saying have those connections draw away from their individual story arcs, but some kind of nod to it would have been nice, because surely the events of Defenders would have affected her in some way, and it was almost just like that was it, completely forgotten. It's like the whole stuff with Luke. Did she stay in touch with Luke? Did Luke stay in touch with her? We kind of almost had none of that, and I think it would have been nice at the end. As nice as it was for her to build up that connection with Oscar and his kid, I think it would have been nice to also have a bit more. It would have been nice maybe if she went down to Oscar, but also before she did, she looked at her phone and looked at her number for Luke, or maybe Danny or something. Yeah, some kind of nod like that would have been nice, to just say we are still all connected. Jessica does still maybe have been affected by the events of this. It didn't have to take up much of the series at all, because like I said, I wouldn't want it detracting from her individual story, but some nod would have been nice. I can understand with Malcolm as well why he left, but what I didn't like was that he went to go work for that dude. I can't remember his freaking name, but the guy who shot her, Jess, and her mom, and pretty much almost committed attempted murder. I can understand Malcolm walking away with kind of how distant and sometimes how Jess used him, which I didn't like and didn't necessarily agree with, but at the same time, that is sometimes how Jess is. She is a complicated person. And I think it's important to notice the flaws in your favourites, because they are human characters, and they are going to do stuff sometimes that pisses you off. But Malcolm was really good, and he's a great character. I felt like that was a little out of character for him to go work for him. Unless he is using him just to get a springboard for his own career. That just didn't make a full load of sense to me. But at the same time, I couldn't understand why he walked away, but I still feel like maybe him and Jess shouldn't have left so strongly on bad blood, and I think that's maybe one of the only relationships that Jess has got aside from Trish that maybe I can see there being some hope of them potentially fixing that along the line, or at least reconciling. Kind of like when Foggy went off to go work for Hogarth. I think you can still see that there may be potential for them to reconcile and maybe at least become some kind of friends again. Because I think Malcolm was good for Jessica, but she wasn't necessarily good for him. So I can understand that's why he left. But also, Jesus, this season was so heavy on Jess, to the point I was just like, this is a bit too much. Give my girl a fucking break. I mean, she's watching people die in front of her. She finds out her mom's been killing people. Trish goes off the rails, shoots her fucking mother. And also Jess accidentally freaking kills someone, which, oh my god. I mean, it was an accident and it was self-defense, but Jesus Christ, the look on her face and the horror on her face. It was horrible, and I hope that doesn't come back to... I mean, I know it will haunt her conscience, but I hope that doesn't come back to haunt her and people find out she's connected to his death. Jesus, that was... like, on top of everything else that's going on, I was like, that is a bit OTT. That is a bit too much, man. And then, of course, her hallucinating Kilgrave and him also kind of maybe thinking that she's the bad guy and she's a murderer and she's a killer. And yeah, she's killed 2 people. One, she had no choice. I think with Kilgrave, that was the only way to stop him. But this guy, I was like, Jesus Christ, give her a fucking break. She's already like dealing with her mom being alive again, but also finding out she's a murderer. And then on top of that, Trish goes off the rails, nearly gets herself killed doing a stupid experiment. She kills her mom, which adds more onto the pain of everything else. I knew Jessica Jones could be dark. It was dark in season 1 and she had a lot of shit to deal with in that season. But this just went overboard, I think, with just not giving Jessica a break at all. Everything just kept going wrong after wrong after wrong, and there are parts of Jessica that I really relate to, so I really connect with her, and it was just a lot to process. I don't know where they're going to go from here, and I hope if they do end up doing a season 3, they bring a bit of that hope back. Anyway, I've focused a lot on the negatives, so I'm going to focus on some of the positives and some of the things that I liked. One of the big things that I liked this season was seeing more of Jess just generally working and being her badass PI self. I love seeing her craft cases together and putting the pieces and the pieces of the puzzle together, like the stuff with the wizard in the beginning of the season, and her actually not necessarily believing him at first, because I think all of us were kind of like that, and then of course finding out he has got powers, and then her digging into stuff about IGH and everything. It's great to see her working. It's great to see her being the PI and the badass she is. I think what was also interesting this season was exploring her relationship with her mother. I think this season's definitely been described as exploring like mothers and daughters. So we got to delve in a bit deeper into Trish's relationship with her mother. Even though I don't like her mother like at all, but you can also see she's a very complicated person. But at the same time, it doesn't excuse the abuse she put Trish through and the way she treats Jessica. It doesn't excuse that at all, but I think it's interesting to explore those relationships at the same time. And actually getting to find out about Jessica's mother was really interesting, and how she was and some of the things that she liked and the family memories that they had. And I think it's a really interesting angle, because you could see times of the two of them really getting along, and then when her mother lost it and got angry and stuff, you could still see there was that really strong connection. I'm really close with my mom, so some of that kind of hit a bit close to home as well. It was interesting to delve into those relationships, Jessica's mom in particular, because she was a particularly interesting character, and you could see that the accident had kind of and the way they brought her back and everything, it kind of broken her as a person. And I think Jessica in some senses could relate to that, but I think she was also scared this season as well. Maybe she'd inherited being a killer from her mother. So that was kind of interesting to explore, because seeing how her mom was, I think Jessica of course didn't want her dead, but she knew she couldn't just let her carry on killing. And it was one of those very complicated situations. What would you do if that was your mother, or your mother figure, or somebody close to you like that? It brought up that complicated question as to what you'd do in that situation, because you know that they can't go around continuing to kill people, and you can't let that happen, but at the same time there's somebody you love. And delving into that complicated subject, it was really, really interesting, and it kind of again blurred the lines of morality that these shows do very, very well. And it was very well written, it was very fantastically acted, and the woman who played Jessica's mother, she was really, really good, and she was one of the big things this season that I really liked. I think I saw it coming from a mile off when it got towards when you saw her with the powers and stuff and you realised it was her. Like, my mom called it as well. She's like, is she Jessica's mom? Because they focused a lot and talked a lot about Jessica's family in the first half of the season. That was a very interesting angle this season, an angle that I liked. A big episode this season that I really liked was the flashback episode, and getting to see Trish and Jess when they were younger, and getting to explore the beginnings maybe of Trish's drug abuse, and seeing Jess and Trish when they were younger, and Jess living with her adopted family, and kind of like the origins of like her jacket, where her jacket came from and where Alias came from. I mean, it was very heartbreaking when she lost Stalin and how he got killed, even though he was going to be an asshole anyway. As soon as like those guys found out about her powers, I was just like, so he's just going to use her. Still doesn't excuse her mom killing him, which that was really sad, but I kind of like that really touching scene of Trish and Jess sat up on a rooftop, and both of them have kind of had everything fall apart because Trish has fell into drug abuse and Jess has just kind of lost her world for a while, and that kind of reconnection with them was really sweet, and I really liked that scene. And this episode was probably one of my favourites. I do kind of like flashback episodes sometimes, and it was interesting to see them in their younger years and getting to explore that. And Jessica's look when she was young was brilliant. It was really interesting to see the origin of things. That song Cray just got stuck in my head, and I'm at the point where I wouldn't say I hate it, but I don't necessarily like it either. But that music video that they released with like the little fact things like they used to in the old music videos, that was really funny. But I could see maybe where they were playing into the satire of what some pop music could be like, where it's pretty much just repeating the same lyrics over and over again. And then of course later on hearing Kilgrave sing that was kind of funny. So yeah, I really, really liked that episode. It was probably my favourite episode this season. I also really liked the storyline for Hogarth this season. She's a very complicated character, and I like that about her. I like that she kind of has this morally grey kind of thing, where she can be selfish, but she can also sometimes help people, and it can make it really confusing. And she's also one of those characters sometimes you don't know where she stands. She does help Jessica when she's in legal trouble, and she helped Danny in Iron Fist. So, and surely Foggy must potentially see something good in her to want to work for her and help her, which was really cool. It was great seeing Foggy show up in like episode 3, because I was just sat there with my mom and I just went, Foggy! I did wonder, I was like, maybe he might show up because he's technically working for Hogarth now. And when he did, I was just like, Foggy! I love Foggy. Foggy's great, and he's gonna be super pissed when he finds out Matt's alive. It's great seeing Foggy. But yeah, her story arc this season was particularly interesting, and I think it probably would have hit close to home to a lot of people, because she got diagnosed with ALS, and I think when you're kind of potentially maybe given almost a bit of a death sentence like that, that's something that's going to degenerate you. Even though I know it doesn't necessarily mean a death sentence, because some people can live for years. It's like, I think Stephen Hawking had it and he lived into his 70s. You could almost see as soon as she had that, she kind of was very desperate to just try and fix it. It is scary potentially to be diagnosed with something like that. So it probably hit close to home to a lot of people, and it's very kind of almost, I guess, realistic and typical of her, that she's scared and she's just like, I want to fix this. So seeing that desperation and maybe some of the breakdown of her character like that was an interesting side to her that we've never seen before, because she always tries to put her strongest foot forward and has this strong persona, that seeing her break down was interesting. I'm one of those people that even though sometimes the heavy stuff can be a bit too much, I do like exploring the vulnerabilities of characters, because I think that's when we can relate to them the most. And her performance this season was fantastic. She's one of those characters, she's not afraid to shy away from doing dark things. Like, she set that shit, I can't remember her name again, but the nurse from IGH, she set her up to go kill her partner who she tricked her into thinking he was the healer. It's one of those things you're like, you know it's wrong, but you don't necessarily hate her for it, which makes her character so interesting, because sometimes you see her do these things and you're like, you really shouldn't do that, it's kind of against the law, that's wrong, but you kind of can't help sometimes but root for her. And I think that's because of Carrie-Anne Moss, because I think she brings such a fantastic performance to the character that sometimes it doesn't matter what she does, you still kind of root for her. Also, another thing that I liked was they didn't rely too heavily on Kilgrave, and I think even though he was a big part of season 1 and I think he was a big crowd drawer because he was such an interesting villain, I was kind of glad with his story arc that it ended at the end of season 1 with Jessica killing him and snapping his neck. And I'm kind of glad that he stayed dead, even though he's still in Jessica's conscience, and I think I can understand why, especially because of the mind control he put her under. And it was interesting that he's kind of there, not really as her conscience, but also kind of like as one of her demons. And I think that was an interesting angle. I liked the hallucination. Well, I didn't like the hallucinations, but I think the use of hallucinations with him was really cleverly done, because I think it was almost kind of giving Jessica's inner demons a face. But one thing I'm glad about, even though I know he's come back from potentially being killed before in the comics, that they didn't bring him back. Like, as much as I love David Tennant's performance, I thought the way they ended season 1 was a perfect way to kind of round off that character arc and everything they were building up to. And if they brought him back, it would cheapen his death. And even though he was a fantastic villain and I love David Tennant's performance, I'm glad that they kept him dead, but instead had him become the face of Jessica's demons, which could mean that he could potentially come back as hallucinations and nightmares again, which does leave that door open and we might get more David Tennant again, which will be really cool. But I am glad that they kept him dead, because I think it would have cheapened season 1 if they hadn't. Anyway, my final thoughts on the season. Like I said before, I don't think it's that easy to binge all in one go because of the heavy stuff that it deals with. I'd recommend digesting it in chunks. I do appreciate that this season took some risks, because sometimes some seasons like to play it safe, and this season they took some big risks with certain things. Some of them paid off, some of them I don't think did, but I do appreciate maybe what they were trying to do, so that's why I'm very mixed on even the things that I didn't like. I still think the storytelling was quite solid. Always loved the neo-noir aspects and the kind of detective aspects, and kind of like the dark aspects and the monologuing for Jessica. I like that. I think that's really cleverly done, and sometimes some people might say that maybe it's a bit cheesy, but I don't think it is. I think it works well, and I think it works for the genre that they're trying to put the show in. I like the way it explores human morality, like your choices. There isn't black and white, there's a lot of grey area, because you find yourself, I think, still caring about characters but not necessarily agreeing with their choices, and it can sometimes bring out different opinions from different people, and I think it brings out a lot of interesting conversations about what you would do in certain situations and whether you agree with how somebody went about something or not. I'm still a bit pissed off about Trish, I won't deny. Her character really pissed me off this season compared to last season where I really loved her. But she is a complicated character and I could appreciate maybe what they were trying to do. But I didn't like the jealousy aspect. I can understand, I think she wanted to be a hero. I think that is something she's always wanted. But I didn't necessarily like the petty jealousy with Jessica and how she suddenly just stopped giving a shit. But I don't know whether that was her going off the rails with her drug abuse again. So I think she is a character this season I have a lot of mixed feelings on. So I'm still not sure. But either way, I'll be curious to see where they go from here. I'll be curious to see if Jessica does show up in any other Marvel series. I think it'd be really cool to see her on Daredevil, particularly with maybe the connection she built up with Matt. That'd be really interesting. I will be curious to see where they take Trish and potentially her connection with Jessica, and whether that will ever get reconciled. I can't see it happening myself, not fully anyway. I think if anything it will take a lot of time, but I'll be curious to see where they take it. I'll be curious to see where they take Trish and with her becoming Hellcat. Even though it's not necessarily the way I would have liked her to become Hellcat, I think it'll be interesting to see how she starts out. Be curious to see maybe where Malcolm goes as well, and I hope he does to a degree reconcile his connection with Jessica, and I hope Jessica tries to maybe reconcile it as well, because I think she was a big driving force of what drove him away. But I think Trish didn't help either. I think they both kind of drove him away a bit. Anyway guys, this video might be very long because once I start getting rambling about my opinions about something, I will go off. Actually, thinking about it, what did you guys think of season 2? What did you not like? What did you like? Did you have the same mixed feelings too? Did you like certain stuff that I didn't like? Did you guys binge it all in one go? Could you binge it all in one go? Or do you agree that maybe it's better in chunks? Or do you think it's okay to binge? I'll be curious to see what you guys think, so just let me know in the comments below. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion video on Jessica Jones season 2. I potentially might do other discussion videos when new seasons for the new other Marvel Netflix series hit this year. I know we're getting Luke Cage season 2 in June, which I'm really excited for because they're going to delve into some heroes for hire. And hopefully we should be getting Daredevil season 3 at the end of the year, which I really can't wait for because him and Jessica are my favourite defenders, so I'm super hyped. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any suggestions for anything you'd like to see. Take care of yourselves guys. Bye!